Kurt, good morning to you. Let's start with the significance of the D.C. location today for Harris's closing arguments.
Well, I think it just shows that she is trying to project the image in the American people's mind that President of the United States, you can visualize the vice president in the Oval Office as commander-in-chief, as president of the United States. And oftentimes when it comes to elections, that's really what the fundamental question is. Can the American people visualize that candidate as the most powerful leader in the world? And with this backdrop, of Washington, D.C., the center of power, political power in this country, I think having that backdrop is her way of trying to project that idea into the American consciousness.
Let's talk about this joke. In poor taste, some say it was racist. Some say it could hurt the Trump campaign. Is too much being made of this?
No, because this is, again, par for the course. I mean, on one hand, Donald Trump loves to go out there and says, the buck stops with me. I'm the boss. I'll hire the best people. I'll make the best decisions. I'm the greatest decision maker in the history of mankind. And then when something goes bad on his watch, all of a sudden, well, it's a joke. It's somebody else's fault. Someone else didn't do their job. He never takes responsibility. And so this is a moment here when he has that press conference today where he's going to get asked about this in a district in a city in Pennsylvania that has a huge Puerto Rican population. This is important. We're talking about an election that we say every day, razor thin margins, as close as it could be, a statistical tie. So any type of last second thing that could influence a core constituency that you're going to need to win, or at the very least activate them to get animated and involved in an election that they may have considered sitting out. That could be a big deal. That could be the difference of winning or losing Pennsylvania.
You and I study this. We're talking about it every day. And the number one question I get, I'm curious if you do as well, is who's going to win, right? And all we have right now is the polls. And you, Kurt, say, the polls right now are wrong. Why?
Well, one, they've been wrong the last couple of election cycles and dramatically underestimating particularly Democrat and female women suburban voters and the impact that Roe had. Every poll leading up to every election says the economy and inflation are number one, immigration and crime are in the top three. And yet we've seen in 2018, 2020, 2022, every special election since 2022, another issue emerge that drives voter behavior more. And that has been the issue of women's rights and abortion in America. And nothing the Republican Party has done since their 2022 underperforming has in any way moved them more towards the mainstream when it comes to women's rights. In fact, they've doubled and tripled down and said incendiary, at times sexist things. I don't think that's going to help their cause. And I think that these women, they're never going to tell a pollster, oh, yeah, I'm going to vote for a Democrat for the first time in my life. They're not going to tell a pollster what they wouldn't even maybe tell their own husband. So that's not going to be reflected in any polling. And if Election Day comes and Kamala Harris wins and we're sitting there on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday going, well, it looks like there was a surge of support from women that weren't captured by the polls, that'll be the reason why.
Yeah, take those polls with a grain of salt. I ignore most of the text messages I get from both sides on polls. When it comes to an October surprise, we've got 1 week out, a couple days left in the month. Have we seen it? Is there going to be one?
I think, if anything, the October surprises are self-inflicted wounds. Again, for reasons past human understanding, we spent the last 48 hours talking about a comedian that prior to that rally at Madison Square Garden, no one had ever heard of, and now is consuming the final closing moments of the Trump campaign. Every minute they're spending having to talk about this comedian is a minute they've lost talking about why they should be president, why their issues matter, or why Kamala Harris is the wrong person to be president of the United States. They're talking about a comedian, and it's a comedian they put on their stage, a conscious decision that they made without ever vetting his routine. I've never heard of such carelessness in politics at this level, but that's par for the course with a campaign that runs by a person who just kind of shoots at the hip, meanders and riffs for 40, 50 minutes at a time. Of course, everyone else on that stage is going to do the same thing. And this is what happens. Self-inflicted wounds are your October surprise.